So while waiting for others to settle in, feel free to prepare your notes or things you might need it. If you have any questions during the session, you may type them into the chat box and we'll address them during the Q&A session later. Before we proceed on our webinar for today, all participants can kindly scan the QR code for registration. I, I remind once again to all participants to kindly scan the QR code for registration form while we're waiting for our esteemed speakers. While waiting for everyone to settle in, feel free to prepare your notes or things you might need it. If you have any questions during the session, you may type them into the chat box and we will address them during the Q&A session later. All participants can kindly scan the QR code for registration. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. Well, welcome to our webinar titled Building a Greener Future, Sustainability Reporting and Implementation in Banking. I am Adeline, your MC for today. Once again, thank you for your participation, and we hope you will gain valuable insight from today's session. Next, we would like to seek blessing before begin with our event. Let us invite Shah Rizwan to lead the Doa recital.
Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, hanya padamu saja kami panjangkan kesyukuran atas segala rahmat dan berkat-Mu. Bersempena dengan program Building a Greener Future Sustainability Reporting and Implementation in Banking pada hari ini, kami memohon inayah dan taufik-Mu. Kurniakanlah kesejahteraan dan kebahagiaan kepada kami. Bukakanlah hati-hati kami, lapangkanlah dada kami supaya kami mendapat isi ilmu dan pengetahuan yang berguna untuk agama, bangsa dan negara. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Kami memohon kepadamu agar engkau berkatilah majlis persidangan ini dengan limpahan rahmat-Mu. Semoga segala usaha kami dalam menjaya majlis ini mendapat keredaan dan hidayah-Mu. Sesungguhnya pada hari ini kami berkumpul kerana-Mu, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Zal Jalal wal Ikram, kami memohon kekuatan dari hadrat-Mu, Ya Allah. Semoga kami yang hadir pada hari ini agar kami mendapat melaksanakan segala kebajikan dan kami pohon perlindungan Engkau daripada segala keburukan. Ya Allah, kurniakanlah kepada kami kekayaan ilmu pengetahuan dan hiasilah diri kami dengan sifat lemah lembut serta muliakanlah kami dengan diri kami dengan kesihatan. Rabb hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you, Shah. May today's session be meaningful for all of us. To show our love and patriotism for the country, let us all remain seated and sing our national anthem, Negaraku and Wawasan Setia Warga UITM. Thank you, everyone. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Encik Muhammad Faiz Nur Salehi. Encik Faiz is an expert in sustainability reporting and has years of experience in implementing environmental, social, and governance practices. Let me share to all of you some achievement of Encik Muhammad Faiz. He leads sustainability disclosure and stakeholder engagement at RHB Banking Group. His key areas of responsibilities is ESG disclosure, TCFD reporting, sustainability strategy, sustainable finance, stakeholder engagement, materiality assessment, ESG risk assessment, capability and culture building, and also a secretariat to board sustainability committee. He also had 10 years of professional experience in ESG, sustainability across consulting and commercial banking. Bachelor's degree in agricultural science at University Putra Malaysia, master's degree in agricultural and environmental science at Newcastle University, United Kingdom, certified in various ESG climate accreditation such as GRI, Sustainable Finance, and UN SDGs. Member of JC3S2 Sub-Working Group, Governance and Disclosure. And lastly, and a CRA 2024 Sustainability Report winner with Platinum Award. With all the experience he gained, for today's session, Encik Faiz will be sharing valuable insight on the topic of building a greener future, sustainability reporting, and implementation in banking. Without further ado, I will now pass the floor to Encik Muhammad Faiz to begin his presentation. Let's welcome him to the virtual stage. Over to you, Encik Faiz.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the very kind and lovely introduction. Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And first and foremost, I would like to express my thanks to UITM Puncak Alam for the opportunity to give me this webinar on this, I think, very important topic nowadays on sustainability. And personally, I am more than happy to share with all of you on some of the insights from my experience in doing sustainability, not just in terms of disclosure and reporting, but also in terms of the implementation, particularly from the consulting side as well as in the banking side that have some correlations. I would also like to express my appreciation that all of you are willing to spend a couple of hours on a Saturday to listen in, and I hope that everyone will find this sharing session a bit useful. If you can go back to the second slide on the agenda, I just want to go through very quickly in terms of what I will be covering today. So basically, this morning I'll be covering 5 main areas. First, I will introduce, well, I think that was already covered very well. I'm not going to do that anymore. But then I will share some basics or the fundamentals of sustainability. I think it's going to be a quick recap. I know that all of us have heard of sustainability, but I think it's just something that we can refresh our understanding. And then I will share a little bit what we have done at RHB in terms of what we have achieved in terms of our progress, our achievements and current milestones, and what we have established. I will also talk about sustainability reporting and disclosure. This is very a key task for my under my responsibility at RHB and for the past experience in other organizations as well. And then finally, I will share something that is actually quite a bit out of scope, that was not requested, but I think going to be quite interesting for you to consider. It's basically on what is going to be like in the future in terms of sustainability in demand, in terms of sustainability in the workspace. Next slide, please. So I won't be covering about myself anymore. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so before we go to the details, I feel that we should start with the basics. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm truly confident that many of you can actually define very well what sustainability is, at least understand the concept of sustainability. The definition that you see on the screen is probably one of the most popular one that you may have read before. If you Google what is sustainability, you'll find that in your research. And this was defined back in 1987. Um, but to be honest with you, when I first started sustainability, when I first read this, to be honest, it wasn't so very clear to me. I feel that they're still vague, especially in terms of the practical sense. I feel that there were a lot of questions in terms of how are we going to achieve it in the first place, and is it that serious? Is it very important? And why is it something that has become quite kind of an importance, especially from the 1990s onwards, lah. Yeah. So next, please. Okay, so then as I'm involved with working with various companies, and other companies as well have matured in their initiation of sustainability journey, we can conclude that sustainability is basically being responsible. Either you are an individual or an organization or a business, we need to be responsible in our decision making and actions. Like say for an individual, you know your impact on the environment, on social front, on other people, on the community that you live in. It's the same for the business as well. It's just being, to wrap it up, is being responsible. And how do we achieve this? There are certain metrics or certain indicators in place, the things that we need to kind of like manage and also monitor to kind of like justify that we are being responsible. So there are three fundamental pillars, which is, I'm pretty sure that you guys also have heard of this, which is ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So that's why sometimes we use the terms ESG and sustainability interchangeably. People might think that it's a different sets of definition, but in fact, based on my experience, ESG are the sets of criteria for investment decision or decision making, but overall it aims for the same thing, which is in terms of sustainability. And as you can see from the screen, there are many breakdowns in terms of the topics under E, S, and G, such as climate change, human rights, business ethics, and the lists are non-exhaustive. If you look at other research as well, they may have a more lengthy breakdowns. Some are more inclusive, some are also quite elaborative. But it also is, like I said, it's non-exhaustive. So these topics are basically where organizations need to assess and manage their impact of their operations for each of them. So basically, if I were to, I were to give a quick highlight. Traditionally, businesses only focuses on the financial factors. If you look at your background, you look at your financial capability, but now it's changing. They're also looking at the non-financials, and these are the non-financials that they're looking at. Sustainability indicators based on the E, S, and G indicators are the indicators that will provide the other non-financial matrices that would be able to assess the risk associated to you or your company. And next, please. Okay, so the question is it really important and do we need it? I've been hearing this a lot, and the question, the quick answer to that is yes, sustainability is critical, especially now and especially in this day and age. The world that we are living now is constantly changing and evolving very rapidly. I'm not sure whether you notice it or not. Even if you talk to your parents or your grandparents, and it seems that we are living in a different world, in terms of economic sense, the environment, biodiversity, the way we are governed, the social aspects of life and everything is totally different. It's not the same. So things are moving a lot faster nowadays compared to before. The scale of economy and production is gaining peak, and all of this requires more responsible management of sustainability, and needs to be done well. And if we go back to the definition of sustainability just now, if we are not able to do so, then we are not able to meet the needs of future generations. Okay, next please. So let's talk a little about climate change, and don't worry. This is just to give a quick example. I'm picking climate change because this currently the buzzword of sustainability. I think this people might associate climate change is sustainability, and sustainability is climate change. There's some truth to that, but also there's some misconception on that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to bore you with the slide and the analysis, but what is actually telling us all is that the global temperature is on the rise, and if we go deeper and study in terms of the impact that the temperature rise will bring to the planet and to us all as mankind, the word we can describe it is we are doomed, and it's going to be a disastrous environment we are going to be living in. And this is serious, and there's global consensus on this. I believe that there are some critics that do not believe in climate change, but we have the numbers. We can actually see the impact as we speak. So this is something that I can tell you is very serious and needs to be managed by not just individuals, but also by businesses. So that's why sustainability is actually one of the main agenda in all organizations these days. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight that, as you can see from this picture, drought, kering kontang, pokok pun tak dapat hidup. We can see a lot of images like this on the screen if you look at climate change. But also climate change can also cause flooding. Bukan kering kontang saja, right? So that can be reversed. So look at the flood dekat Kelantan, you see, and also now in Klang Valley dekat KL, is nowadays the frequency of the flood, if you notice, right, is more frequent than before, and it's more damaging than before. Dulu kereta mana ada protection for what, for natural disasters, for flooding, right? Nowadays it's like a must. My family personally terkesan with that, and I heard many stories as well. So if you ever buy a car in the future, make sure that you also get the flood protection lah. Okay, with RHB. And then also, just to share that on the economic scale, it costs the country billions of ringgit, especially what's happening in terms of flood mitigation and the disasters relief. Working at a bank, I know that we also have special funds for the flooding victims, and this has become more frequent. But what I want to highlight here is that it also has social impact, social impact. And I can elaborate that in the next slide, please. Okay, so I won't really talk much on the environmental impacts. I think that's pretty obvious already, like I mentioned. There's evidence of this. Kalau Mak Saleh akan kata melting of glaciers, kat Malaysia mana ada glaciers, right? And there's the frequent natural disasters that I mentioned earlier lah. But if we also study deeper in terms of the impact from climate change, there's also extinctions of species and also migration of species, and this impact the biodiversity chain as well. But we need to look beyond that. Climate change and other sustainability matters or topics out there, we need to look beyond the short term. We need to look at the medium term and long term as well. And if we study the medium term and long term, ada kesan sosial, there's a social impact to that. So I give you an example. Let's say the arid lands where we used to produce crops. If kita tanam jagung ke, tanam beras ke, everything, right? The arid lands will actually reduce the production of crops, and then supply chain for food will actually impacted, and then there will be supply and demand issue, and then harga barang naik. Itu kalau still ada barang lagi lah, and then there will be social impact to not only the economy but also to us as consumers. And actually this is also evident already. We are seeing this across the globe, especially where nations used to produce crops with certain percentage. Now with the decline, we can see the price rise, and with price rise, there's going to be even political unrest. There's going to be a lot of cutbacks, and of course, kesan berpanjangan in terms of social living as well. Yeah. So next, please. Yeah, so like I mentioned, I personally I like this slide. I found this slide a couple of years ago because during that time the focus on climate change was the main agenda for everybody because of the impact. But I can tell you that climate change is not uh, only the topic for sustainability. There are also other issues. Some countries will focus on other issues as well as high importance. It's not the same for each country. So I just wanted to bring this up very forward that yes, climate change is sustainability, but it's only a subset of the environmental pillar of sustainability. There are others that we also need to tackle. So what I'm trying to say is very broad. Sustainability or these non-financial aspects is something that is very complex, very diverse, and also something that is a concern across the region and also across globally because of its multiple effects. Okay, next please. Okay, so one of the misconceptions when we talk about sustainability, can we talk about teruknya, climate change, all those things, right? Is that it's all scary and it's all about negativity, it's all about the risk and everything, right? But we need to understand that sustainability comes with both risk and opportunities. Macam orang kita kata lah, setiap masalah tu ada penyelesaian dan juga kebaikan dia. So all depends on how business or organization manage sustainability issues that are relevant to them. I won't go through all three E, S, and G examples here, but let's take environment lah. For example, we talked about climate change earlier, right? The risk of not managing this will actually result in what we discussed earlier. However, if businesses manage to mitigate and manage this issue, they can actually gain the benefits. For example, we are seeing a lot of business nowadays installing energy efficiency and renewable energy facilities and equipment, not just to manage climate change, but also to reduce the dependencies on fossil fuel energy sources, which would actually further cost in the longer period. At the same time, the reputation will also increase, and also a lot of, I think for the younger generations, this is something that we like to hear nowadays, right? So there are a lot of positivity in implementing ESG or sustainability in a business. Next, please. Okay, so in terms of risks and opportunities, there's a lot that we can find nowadays in terms of ESG implementation for the business. You all can Google them later. There are also other interesting ones, but essentially the pattern that we are seeing here is that if sustainability issues is not managed, the common outcomes for companies is that it can actually lead to penalties, it can lead to legal fines and even lawsuits, even liquidity loss, financial loss. And where companies that are embracing sustainability and becoming more sustainable, they not only can improve their innovation and profitability stream, but also they are able to increase their reputation. And reputation goes a long way. And this is something that we'll discuss a bit more further in the disclosure section later. So the companies that are listed here are basically some of the well-known examples out there, and I believe that if you want to localize it, there are also other companies in Malaysia, even that we have heard before in terms of from the plantation sector, even Top Glove. I'm sorry to name that here, but we've seen a lot of those cases are sustainability risk management that are not being managed very well. I give you an example. When I first started working at a consultancy, I was working with a plantation company in Malaysia, a very big one that has presence across the globe. The issues that they face was of orang utan, deforestation, supply chain management, all those, right? And there were members at the management level that did not want to embrace sustainability. They kept on saying that, this is just the agenda of the West. We don't have to follow them. We don't have to produce our crop in their standards and all that, right? So what happened was there were legal issues when they were proven to to deforest in a way that is illegal and not according to law, and they were fined. And even there, and news breaks out, and their stocks were actually depleted. So vice versa, another company, they actually embrace sustainability, and they actually produce, and they actually invested in some technology and some guidelines to produce sustainable crops. And they can even sell those crops in a premium price. So they gain profitability from that. Actually, that was the first time I actually see the opportunities materialize in terms of implementation of sustainability. And from there, I could see the company were truly invested and manage their risks and opportunities in terms of sustainability implementation without looking back. Okay, so next page, please. Okay, so to be honest with you, when I first started doing sustainability myself, I heard a lot of comments from business leaders and from peers as well, even from fellow consultants, and also my clients, especially bankers. They asked me, is it going to last? Is it going to be as important in the future? Maybe this is like a 5-year focus or something like that, right? Believe me when I say this, from the moment I started, things are not slowing down. In fact, things are getting more complex and more intense. And why is that so? Actually, well, sustainability is already a global agenda way back. And many of you may have seen this colorful, cantik-cantik petak-petak sustainable development goals, right? Yang to be honest, I sampai sekarang pun tak hafal at heart because there's so many and there's so many sub-indicators and sub-goals to that. But basically, at the national agenda across the globe, we are committed to this goal. And that's why United Nations, anything that that's referred or guided by the United Nations is something that is taken very seriously globally. And I can tell you as a business, it's given that we must align with what the national wants, what the national appetite wants. So it's not backing down. It's a very long-term target. Now it's the 2030 agenda. There's going to be maybe 2040 or 2050 in the future. The target is quite far-fetched, to be honest. So that's why I feel that it's going to increase. So that's why I said things are going to be intensified in the future. And everybody, not just at the business level and regulatory level, but also the consumer level in the future will have an impact in terms of how you will contribute towards meeting these goals. So be prepared for that. Okay, next page, please. Okay, again, we can also back this up with some statistics. I'm not going to discuss all of them, but I'm just going to summarize it. Where we are seeing increasing demand and update for sustainable practices and products. Nowadays, kalau you beli barang kat luar pun, you see, oh, made from this lah, eco-friendly ni lah, and then this can be recycled, all those things, right? They don't do that for suka-suka one, you know. They do that because there's business purpose, there's reputation purpose, and also there's demand to that. We're also seeing a lot of mandatory requirements from the regulators across the industries, from banking sector, which I will explain a bit later. I can tell you, most of my job is basically dealing with the regulators, and they are very aggressive in this area. I can tell you it's also the same for other sectors, oil and gas, plantations. They're also facing this kind of pressure from the regulators, and these are mandatory requirements. So I can tell you that this is something that is gaining traction, and not just in Malaysia, but also globally. Talking about Malaysia, next slide, please. It's the same pattern. You can see not just for the major companies, but also at the SME level as well, which is also incredibly challenging for them to adopt this. But the trend is there. For example, in Malaysia, just 10 years ago, personally, when I experienced working with companies to develop their sustainability report or annual report, which have sustainability statement in it, they were all stressed out. They were also kancong lah, even to produce a basic one. Because everything was starting and there was no even a proper structure to do it. However, I'm very surprised. After I tracked their progress, maybe after 5 years or 6 years, to be honest, I thought that they will never get internal buy-ins or appetite, but I can see that now they want to report more. They have been reporting more, and actually, the standards of their reporting is on par with the regional peers. And I, I'm quite surprised, and I have to give credit to the regulators for pushing this, and also the guidance that they have given. And nowadays, for students like all of you, you guys are fortunate to be able to compare good results. Compared to me, when I had to do research before, I had to look at the global peers, which are also starting. What I can say is that in Malaysia, not just is gaining traction, but we are doing very well. And I can tell you, being in industry and sector committees, we want to be a leader in ASEAN and also in Asia moving forward. And I can tell you that this is something that will make Malaysian companies, whatever size, to be focusing on sustainability even harder in the future. Next, please. Okay. Also, in terms of other external pressures, there might be some overlapping uh, or repetitions from the previous slides. I won't go through this in detail as well. But what I want to emphasize here is that there are pressures from companies' key stakeholders. Maybe the board, maybe your customers, your shareholders. Dulu shareholder fikir macam I just want maximum return in terms of profitability. But nowadays it's not like that. They want to see how you manage your sustainability risk, because I don't personally, let's say if I'm a shareholder of a big company, I do not want to be affiliated with the company yang tak ada human right issues, human right policies, yang ada poor management in terms of the community engagement, all those things, right? Because others will pick up, consumers will pick up, and eventually their shares will actually, the profitability and revenue will also decline from that. And we are seeing there's a lot of case studies as well on this as well. What I'm trying to explain, not just from the customers, but the regulators are also a key player that moves the needle for the change of sustainability. And I will explain about this for banking in a bit. Next, please. Okay, so now we have entered the banking spectrum. I think again, I want to dive down a bit in terms of sustainability in financial institution. ESG risk, of course, not just for banks, always have direct and indirect impact on the organization. Nowadays, we are seeing a lot more emphasis on ESG risk for companies. It's been found that we're able to contribute to greater financial damage, not just non-financial damage, financial damage, if not being managed comprehensively. So what you can see from the screen are basically some of the key risks under the ESG that now needs to be considered as a BAU or business as usual in companies' risk management process and governance across all sectors, especially banking. So before, these are considered as something additional, but now it will be considered as a BAU already. It should be embedded already. So like I mentioned earlier, ESG risk can cause financial and non-financial damage to banks. So for those that maybe need some explanation here, is that let me give you maybe a short example. So say that RHB gives a loan to a business in the plantation sector. So if the client is not able to manage the impact of climate change, let's say that they didn't do the analysis, they didn't have establishment or facilities to mitigate and manage climate change impacts, it can cause production decline from their end. And if we see this pattern in the medium term, they won't get a lot of profit. So they also have a lot of capitals to manage in terms of the facilities, their workers and all that, right? They might it may impact their ability to repay RHB in terms of loans and interest. And we have seen these cases before. I'm not saying for RHB, but for other case studies for other banks globally as well. It has become financial loss to the bank, and also it caused competitive decline for the bank as well compared to the peers. So this is only on climate change. Remember earlier, there's a lot other issues. As I even also highlighted one of the examples from plantation company from on orangutan, biodiversity, all those things, right? So these can cause not just reputational damage, but also in terms of financial loss to banks. So that's why the regulators, the banks are really, really um, uh, um, focused and aggressive in terms of taking this seriously, not just for the purpose of having it, but in terms of implementation and decision making. Okay, next, please. Yes, so for banks, I can tell you, for financial institutions, not just commercial banks, investment banks, even insurance, all the financial institutions within this spectrum, I can tell you that we have a very big role to play. We are actually extremely influential. The reason for that is we are capital providers for all companies, all sectors. We give money. Yeah, we give money. Yeah? So we have the role to impact the market, the entire market, to be more sustainable through our sustainable products and services. So our sustainable product services, for example, we give loans for client to um, invest in environmentally friendly projects or on solar, or even on retail is like on EV vehicles or those things, right? This is the part that we can play. If we don't play it well, we can actually turn it around. We can actually be the the cause of damage in the market. So that's why our role is very important. Apart from that, as a bank, we are also exposed to sustainability risk, and the list of topics or key matters that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen are arising from our customers and stakeholders. So we need to have strong ESG risk management process to mitigate them, because if we are impacted, they will be impacted. That is how it will impact the bank. And we also need to be transparent and in regular engagements with our stakeholders, our customers, regulators, because they have set high standards on us. And finally, as a financial intermediary, we also can be responsible to make sustainability as a norm. So this is where we engage with our stakeholders for us to advocate why sustainability is important and why we need to how do you say, move towards sustainable financing and invest in those areas. So financial institutions, if we do this well, we will gain the benefits. Our reputation will be solidified. We will be able to innovate and generate new revenue streams. We will be able to attract new customers, especially the younger generations, which are more inclined to work with banks that are sustainable, and also attract quality talent to join us. I can tell you, younger talents nowadays, they also place emphasis in terms of working at a sustainable company and also sustainable bank. And if we fail, if financial institution fails to do this, again, like other companies, we'll face reputational damage. But as a bank, which is highly regulated, it can also cause a lot of legal issues. This is something that, so at a bank, as a highly regulated organization, this is something that we cannot have. It's something that we cannot experience. We need to do, or Bank Negara or the other regulators will really scrutinize on our approach and direct us to be more sustainable. Yeah. Next, please. Okay, so I've been talking a lot on the regulatory side. I will stop bit in bit, but this is, I think, one of the last slide on regulatory requirements. We are seeing a lot of regulators, especially Bank Negara Malaysia, had been very proactive to drive the adoption of sustainability within financial institutions. In fact, from 2016, the advocacy and directives on ESG and climate has been one of the main agenda between the regulators and financial institutions. So it's not something new. It's something that has been in discussion and been debated actually from 2016. In fact, before that as well, but formally by 2016. So typically, what do they want actually? What do the regulators want? Actually, they want to see financial institution to instill proper management and disclosure and reporting in regards to ESG and climate. They know the impact that climate change could bring to the financial institutions that would impact the economy. So that's why they are very aggressive in this area. And personally, I can tell you, the directives from the regulators, they are not easy. Um, this is also new to many of us. I like to say that us bankers, we are not scientists. And somehow now we need to quantify the financial implications from climate change and other ESG issues. So it's like uh, I studied maths because I don't want to do science. Now I have to do science in my job as well, something like that. So this is ongoing, and I can tell you that we are seeing regulators gearing up, and even harder. And we expect financial institutions to follow suit. So we have no choice. Next, please. Yeah, I think this is the one that my team and I developed just to kind of like highlight to the stakeholders that we engage with. Basically, all of this, with there's no choice of us to not doing sustainability. So we need to change. We need to change, and we need to upgrade our business model. We need to ensure that our resources, our investments, our enablers, the way we govern, everything, all are to manage the sustainability risk and to ensure that we capitalize on the opportunities for both financial and financial opportunities from sustainability. So the business models needs to change, and companies are aware of this. So that's why nowadays, if you look at sustainability reports or corporate website from other banks, not just RHB, but other financial institutions, you can see that they have robust governance. They have robust sustainability strategy. They talk about risk management and also on certain targets that they want to achieve. So this is not something that is just for internal tracking, but also to advocate to the stakeholders the things that they are doing, the things that they are capitalizing in terms of opportunities, and also the risk that they manage to manage well through their robust business model. Yeah. Next page, please. Yeah, so I will share some other practices now for RHP, but before that, I think maybe we should, I was going to ask whether there's questions, but maybe we can save it for the last section. So just a quick intro to RHB as a group. We are a Malaysian bank and have operations across Southeast Asia. Our business encompasses community banking, which includes retail and SME banking, Islamic banking, wholesale, that include corporate and commercial banking, as well as insurance, particularly asset management and general insurance. Next, please. I can skip this as this is a repetition. Next, please. Yeah, so basically this is our purpose, is to making progress for everyone. We also have our brand promise, and we also have our corporate values like other organizations that we take pride in, which is pride, professional respect, integrity, dynamic, and excellence. Next, please. Okay, so this one is, I want to show you that this is our corporate strategy, which is together we progress. As you can see, sometimes that you hear companies saying that, oh, sustainability is integrated or embedded in our business strategy, something like that. But what does it really mean? I can tell you this is a description of that, or a visualization of that. Our previously sustainability is separate. Sustainability strategy is the other strategy, and corporate strategy is the corporate strategy. But the demand and the best practice nowadays is that it's embedded in the corporate strategy, so that it's taken as one, so that tracking and also performance can be done holistically, and it can show how serious sustainability plays a role in your business, not just a by the by thingy. So this is our corporate strategy. Like I mentioned just now, as you can see, sustainability is core to it. We do not segregate or treat sustainability as by the way or second priority. Actually, we have a new strategy which is not announced yet, so that's why I couldn't share. And I can tell you the focus for sustainability has grown in the corporate strategy as well. So it is well integrated in our corporate strategy. So this is something that we even track on a quarterly basis in terms of performance to the management and the board. Okay, next please. In terms of our own sustainability strategy and roadmap, this is RHB's up 2026 sustainability strategy and roadmap, which we developed back in 2021. And since then, we have made revisions to this to ensure that we continuously align with regulatory expectations and also our corporate strategy. For instance, before, we do not have the committed to achieving net zero by 2050, but nowadays, because of the regulators are emphasizing on climate change, so that's why we have added that in. So very quickly, under the strategy and roadmap, we have 4 aspirations. Number 1 is in regards to sustainable financial services. This is where we aim to mobilize 50 billion in sustainable finance by 2026 across all of our business segments. So tak kisahlah solar panel ke, EV vehicles ke, investment in projects with environmentally friendly benefits ke, SMEs, MSMEs ke, financial inclusion ke, all those are related. And this fall under, and then we also have to empower more than 2 million targeted individuals and businesses across ASEAN. This is where we focus on the unserved and underserved segments. We look at where we can actually come in to provide financial literacy, some financial capital aid in terms of to start the business. And this is part of our financial inclusion agenda as well. In fact, what I'm doing right now also, we can consider that as financial literacy as well. The other 2 aspiration, achieve carbon neutral operations by 2030 and achieve net zero by 2050 is our climate aspiration. And this is the most difficult one. And this is something that is one of our main priorities moving forward. And in order to achieve this, we are also guided by 4 pillars and its own focus areas, which will ensure RHB to achieve overall sustainability. So if you dissect what we have right now under the 4 pillars, you would be able to map the environmental indicators, the social indicators, the governance indicators. We have achieved that level of maturity where it doesn't have to be visible, but for mature reporters and for mature companies, that it would be able to tell. So what I'm trying to say is that our sustainability strategy encompasses all of the ESG elements that are relevant to banking and also to RHB. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to share very quickly, this is a big deal to RHB because not many banks have established this yet. In Malaysia, I think there's only 3 or 4. On 18th of April 2024, we have made a public announcement of RHB committing to achieve net zero by 2050. And this is related to how we manage our finance emissions. But before that, just to share what finance emission is. Finance emission is actually greenhouse gas emissions that derives or associated with the investment and loans made by us to our clients. So basically emissions from our customers. I hope that you understand how difficult this is for banks. We are not managing our own emissions now. We also need to track and understand and assess the emissions from our clients. And we have a lot of clients across SMEs and also corporates and commercial. So if a bank has disclosed on its net zero commitment and plan, I can consider that they have gone through a very rigorous process of establishing that baseline. And we have done that back in 2022. I can tell you it is not a fun project, but it is something that is needed, and the regulators are also asking for us to have something like this. Yeah, so it's in terms of net zero and finance emission in Malaysia is even in the region as well is still kind of a new um, new topic where there's a lot of capability building and knowledge and skill set needs to be developed. Um, so this is something that will remain our focus, where we can see whether we need to tweak the target or not, whether there's other focus that we need to look at. So basically, when we look at strategic objective one, so this is where we want to reduce our finance emissions from our customers. Just to share, this is where we need to work very closely with our customers in terms of their journey for sustainability. And I can tell you strategic objective one is the hardest of them all. So I don't want to go into the technicalities, but again, net zero is a very complex process. It's very ambitious, and you will be seeing more and more banks talking about the net zero journey and even reporting going forward, including for RHB. Okay, next please. Okay, RHB KPIs. Okay, so basically we have a lot of sustainability KPIs that we track internally and we report. You can look at our sustainability report. Is 270 pages, a lot. But for our focus, we have identified four main KPIs for us to specifically focus on, monitor and report on as our main priority. As you would have noticed, most of the KPIs tally with the key aspirations that I mentioned just now. But as to add to the KPI, we also have added diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of our sustainability strategy. And DEI is something that now also considered as you must have it, especially not just in businesses, but also in other institutions as well. And I can share with you that in Malaysia, we actually rank quite well in terms of DEI. The representation of women workforce and leadership are quite high across sectors. So we can be very proud of that. So I think we are a good role model, especially from the Southeast Asian perspective on how we can lead DEI agenda. So I think that's something that the government and the businesses in Malaysia are doing very well in. Okay, next please. Okay, so I won't go through the details of it. Just to share with you, I only have the third quarter numbers of last year because we have not formalized officially the year-end numbers, so I can't share that with you. Just to share in terms of certain financial services, we have mobilized 34 billion to date, which is 70% of our 50 billion target. So this encompasses everything lah, like I mentioned just now, on environmentally friendly projects, on solar, EV vehicles, or those things. In regards to empowering 2 million individuals and businesses, we have 6 initiatives. We work with students as well. We work with others, SME participants as well. We work with the underserved communities as well. So we have reached over 1 million since we have first started. And this is across ASEAN. In regards to DI, we have maintained 33.3% or 1/3 of representation at not just senior but top leadership. Even at board level, 33% is actually represented by female boards. And to share at RHB in terms of succession planning, in terms of talent identification for female leadership is taken very seriously. And we are seeing a lot of good results in terms of the diversity where female leadership could bring. And this is something that we also focus on very, very closely. And then net zero, I won't talk about that anymore because this is something that I've discussed earlier. But also just to highlight here is on strategic objective 3, which is carbon neutral operations by 2030. So basically, in order for us to reach net zero by 2050, we have to reach carbon neutral operations by 2030. And this is our own emissions last. So this is where we install solar energy, other energy efficiency equipment to reduce our energy consumption and management lah. Yeah. So next, please. Okay. This is our sustainability governance structure. Just to share with all of you, sustainability governance is key to ensure proper oversights of sustainability RHB, not just RHB, everywhere. And initially, when we first started, we only had one committee that looks after sustainability. And it was not enough because it was getting more serious and more intense. So now we have developed a robust structure from board level and also to the working level. And at RHB, we have various committees across the board and senior management as well. I personally work very closely with the board and also with the board sustainability committee and also frequent in the group sustainability committee. And also we have two councils, which is the Sustainable Business Council that looks at sustainable financing and risk management. And we also have the Responsible and Sustainable Practices Council that looks after the operational and value chain sustainability. And of course, the day-to-day work and also the task of implementation of sustainability is cascaded to the three lines of defense or the business units and also the support functions across the group. So everybody has a part to play. Everybody has their own task and KPI in terms of implementation and execution of sustainability at RHB. Yeah. Next, please. Okay, so now I'll be sharing a bit in terms of our key and selected milestones that we have achieved since first started sustainability back in 2016, where we started off by setting off the foundation. Now we have progressed towards want to be that driver towards change for our stakeholders. I will not go through everything, but I just want to highlight of the key achievements that I think is important to share. Back in 2021, we actually launched our group climate action program. We have completed that. That has actually enabled us to establish that net zero commitment actually. And in 2022, we have embarked on our sustainability strategy and roadmap with the KPIs that I highlighted earlier. And in terms of governance, we have established, like I mentioned earlier, on the robust governance structure, and we also have enhanced it further. We have formalized the appointment of sustainable finance head that looks specifically into sustainable finance. So that's also something that we have enhanced. In terms of industry best practices, we since 2022, we have issued a stance on no coal and also no deforestation, no peat and no exploitation commitment. This is similar to other best practices in the market, where coal and also NDPE plays a major role in terms of how we can avoid facilitating funding for projects that could detriment the environment and biodiversity. Yeah, so we have done that. We have also made great strides in sustainable financial services. I can tell you, our target now is 50 billion, but before this was 20 billion. We achieved that early, so we revised to 50 billion. I can tell you that we are revising again because we are doing so well, and based on projection, we are able to do more. So this is because, again, the customers also demand for sustainable products. So you can see that interest as well. Okay, then in terms of reporting, this one is we have improved tremendously from 2017. We comply with the regulatory requirements when we also adopt the best practices. And finally, we also play a key role in terms of contributing to the industry and advocate for change and transition. We are members of multiple committees and also a member of the United Nations Global Compact. Yeah. Next, please. Okay, so the next couple of slides are just to show you very quickly, just to say that for each of the sustainability matters or topics relevant to us, we do have policies, we do have the guidelines to manage them. Without policies and guidelines, the workforce would be not guided in terms of how they can execute the implementation of management of risk and opportunities associated with the sustainability topics. And it's also aligned with the regulatory guidelines as well. Yeah. So next, please. So we can also skip this. Yeah, I also talked about this as well. Okay. Okay, so this is okay, just a quick one. Okay, in our financing and also in lending activities, it is very important for us to assess and understand our clients and their business activities that may pose sustainability risk to us, and also that can have direct impact on our financial. Like I mentioned earlier, traditionally we only looks at the client's financial and background during onboarding. However, because of ESG risks are now gaining traction, we are now required to assess sustainability risks of our clients, and um, this is we have a long list, so it's like um, ask we have a structured tool where we ask whether they have environmental policy or not. Uh, are they using efficient energy efficiency equipments or not? How they manage their labor, all those things, and in terms of corporate governance as well, do they have anti-corruption practices or not? All those things. It's a very long list, but eventually it will lead to weightage or ratings whether they fall under which level of risk that is under the sustainability risk aspect. And this is actually used for decision making. So if a company is very strong in the financial aspect, it doesn't mean or guarantee that we will accept them unless they can also show us that their sustainability practices and establishment is also on track or actually sound and robust enough. So for clients, nowadays to get funding is not as easy as before. So that is why it goes both ways. Both parties plays a role in this. Yeah, so all other banks also have the same process, but maybe different tools or different names, but they also have this kind of SOP already. Lah. Okay, next please. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we are very active and involved in the industry. I'm also in some of these committees as well, attending meetings and discussion at Bank Negara and Bursa. So we continue to participate to understand what is needed by the regulators and also what the financial institutions are needed to drive sustainability from the regulators. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah, so also mentioned we have become member of the United Nations Global Compact. Most of the companies these days they are a member that want to kind of like demonstrate how they embed sustainability across their operations. So we with this we're able to participate more in industry advocacies and also in terms of getting the benefits in terms of attending forums and also capability building tools, and also campaigns as well with the collaboration by UNGC. Next, please. Okay, so we know that sustainability and climate is relative a new topic for most of us, and it is very important for us to build the skill set and knowledge so we can implement sustainability correctly and also can be sustained over a long period of time. So back in 2023, we have actually established a framework called the Sustainability Capability Building Framework. I was also in that project. So through this framework, we have been rolling out learning modules and programs across foundational and not just that, also intermediate and advanced levels that include certification for all employees and critical functions across the three lines of defense. So the learning modules have certifications. We also have e-learnings. We also have internal sharings and internal learnings, and also external learnings where we get experts to come in to build the capabilities of critical functions. And to date, we have invested over 60 training programs, participated by more than 3,000 employees across ASEAN, and we will continue to build the skill set of our employees, including from my team and the sustainability team as well. Yeah. Next, please. So we also have developed e-learnings for all staff. So these are the ones that we make mandatory, especially Module 1 and Module 2 will be made mandatory starting this year. So everybody will have to participate in this. So this is just a quick foundational introduction to sustainability for all of the staff. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah, so we also have won a few notable awards. I think I have to can skip this is just to share. We in terms of sustainable finance and also reporting as well, we have won quite numerous award. And awards are actually intended for not just RHB, for companies as well to keep on motivated to be inspired to do ESG in a continuous manner. Okay, next. Okay, so now we come to the another interesting part I think that needs to be highlighted. But before we go any deeper, we need to ask ourselves, why do we need to communicate on our sustainable performance? We can do internally, but why do we have to shout about it, right? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but if I can conclude, it's basically to meet the expectation and concerns of our stakeholders. Stakeholders, they do not know what you do. They are external stakeholders. They hear things, but they don't know what you do. So they want to know how we deal with sustainability risks and how we create opportunities. They also want to know that are we doing well or not? Are we meeting target or not? That can actually make them to make informed decisions. Yeah. So this is why since 2015 or 2016, Bursa had mandated for public listed companies to develop sustainability statement or sustainability report annually to communicate on the company's strategy, governance, policies, all the things that I mentioned before. And even investors are assessing reports these days before making decisions, and even future workforce or future talents are also reading sustainability report before joining a company. I can tell you, I personally do that because if the company does well financially, that's good. But in terms of what can the company do, do to me in terms of my welfare, how they manage labor, all those things is also quite important as well. So it's very important for managing the stakeholders' expectations. Next slide, please. Okay, so developing a report is not easy. Trust me on this, is a very long and tedious process. I'm currently 1/3 of way of developing the certain report 2024. It has a lot of requirements and standards to follow. And trust me, I have been doing this for 10 years. I still find it very complex, and the rules and regulation I keep on enhancing and changing. We even brought this up to Bank Negara and Bursa that we need a standardized standard. But it all started with Bursa. Bursa actually oversees the overall sustainability reporting requirements for public listed companies, and now we also have Bank Negara and JC3 that also expect some sort of climate related reporting from the banks. Next. So there's also best practices as well. I think if you're in the sustainability space, GRI is very popular. I think about 86% of reporters use GRI as reference. This is the Global Reporting Initiative. Even before Bursa's requirement for sustainability reporting is also guided by GRI as well. There's also TCFD, which is the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. Looks at climate reporting, and also we also have the United Nations SDGs. This is where we report on our contribution on sustainable development goals, where we map the contribution with the performance and also the targets and sub-targets as well. Yeah. Next. Yeah, so I would like to share the reporting and disclosure process at RHB. So we produce sustainability reports annually since 2017. And the main form is, and that is the main form of communication to our stakeholders because it's a very comprehensive report. But we also have other forms of engagements. We do presentations and briefings to regulators, customers, analysts, media, shareholders, and potential investment companies. So it's very important for us to provide meaningful and updates to each stakeholder group catered to them. So our approach is to provide a good understanding of our establishment and progress in the areas of governance, data credibility, and also how we manage all of our material issues, our material topics. And like I said earlier, each engagement with specific stakeholders will be catered, but the approach will remain the same. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah, the reason that I added this slide is I wanted to highlight that how important effective communication can be, because it can give you a commercial and reputational positive impact and benefits. With reporting, we will be assessed by rating agencies, and this will be made publicly. We can compare, this bank against this bank, what's the rating, or those things. So is your reputation at stake? And stakeholders can read our report and see which percentile or quartile that we are in. This will also open doors for good collaboration and partnerships, like we did with TNB, which was a big one. And we also need to highlight that sustainability communication should be treated as a strategy. It's not just part of, we have something, then we report on it and disclose on it, but we need to mention that it needs to be treated as strategy. So we need to have a plan. What's the foundation? What's the baseline? And how are the ways that we can improve the gaps? So that's why at RHB, we look at all areas needed to ensure that we meet stakeholders' expectation. And this includes more collaboration with them to understand their concern. So for instance, that if the regulators are focusing more on climate change, our engagement with the regulators will be more frequent on climate change management and risk management and how we could do more in this space. So it must be treated as a strategic tool and not just if you have data to share, we share. It's not like that. It's more than that. So because with that, we can actually gain the benefits in terms of reputation and commercial benefits also. Next, please. Okay, so very quickly, just to show that we've been producing since 2017. I can tell you from 2017 up until 2019 or 2020, we focus more on meeting regulatory requirements because we are still establishing new governance, new policies, just started to implement new initiatives. But since 2020 onwards, our reports have already matured. We have also adopted best practices from the global standards as well. Even we have met certain expectation, and just to share, we won the award, the best sustainability reporting award for 2023 recently. So this is where we this is considered as part of our main KPI, especially from the group sustainability management team. Yes, I've mentioned earlier in terms of ratings, in the areas of ratings, we have been doing well as well, because as we improve our report, our ratings will also improve. And also just to share, if you are an investor, you will also look into ratings before you invest in those companies. Okay, next, please. Okay, but even though that reporting sounds like a very interesting and nice thing to do, but we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful. I need to highlight this because we suddenly, I think for the past couple of years, we have seen a lot of these issues coming and it's becoming concerning. So when we communicate our sustainability performance, we need to be truthful to ourselves. We also need to be very careful to not commit to overstatement, understatement. We need to avoid greenwashing and green hushing. Sebelum ni we dengar greenwashing and green hushing. I heard there's other green out there. But what is it? So greenwashing, everybody knows that basically it's exaggerations, like exaggeration of our practice. And green hushing is basically trying to hide the gaps or under-reporting in terms of their ESG performance. So why companies are doing this is basically they want to make themselves look good. Now that reporting is mandatory, they want to make themselves look good. And not to report on the gaps and weaknesses is not right. And gaps and weaknesses should be reported. It's actually part of the reporting requirements because of transparency for the stakeholders. And I can tell you, greenwashing and green hushing can cause reputational damage, financial and also legal implications, regulatory penalty, and even liquidity loss to the companies. So one of the ways that companies are doing this, even at RHB, to avoid greenwashing and green hushing, we also need to work with external parties. We need to work with our auditors, our assurance providers, reporting experts to guide us in terms of what are the things that we need to report and how to report on it. Most of the greenwashing and greenwashing issues arise from not being guided in terms of how to disclose the gaps in a way that should be reported. So this is something that a lot of companies are actually struggling because your reputation at stake, people will be reading your report. So that's why we tend to always want to report on the good things, but we need to be very balanced and transparent of our performance and target. Yeah. Next, please. I pretty much covered this as well, so I think we can skip that. Yeah. So again, this is repetition, but I can tell you that what I'm trying to say is that it can cause trust. Trust from stakeholders will be lost. And as a reporter, I can tell you once trust is lost from reporting, it is very difficult. It's very hard to regain trust from stakeholders. And the hardest part, especially for a bank, is to be able to answer to the regulators why greenwashing and greenhashing kind of like appeared in your report. So that's why I think greenwashing, greenhashing previously has been treated as okay, it's not really that serious. Maybe we can justify, but actually there's more implications to that. Okay, next please. Yeah, so there's a lot of case studies that you can see. I'm not going to go through everything, but just to share one interesting one from Volkswagen. I think a lot of companies use this example as well. Imagine they used to claim their diesel vehicle as environmentally friendly. I don't know how how that comes out. Maybe I need to do more research on that. But kind of odd, doesn't it? But and then it got picked up by researchers, if I'm not mistaken, by university students that did that trial. And apparently, that what they found out is that the vehicle emit 40 times more nitrogen oxide than the allowed limit. So it's more than 40% lah. So you see, because of this, they couldn't justify. They couldn't back up with statistics. So it has become a very big news, and it cost them billions, and they have to recall the vehicles, and even the US governments were involved in this. So it was a very, very big case back then. So imagine the financial loss of that, and also if, let's say, in the future, Volkswagen would claim that they're environmentally friendly, kita akan fikir 2-3 kali lah, right? Yeah, even though they are truthful to they've improved, but we also always have that stigma lah, something like that. Okay, next please. So I think we can skip this in terms of greenwashing. Okay, just to quickly recap here, right? Really, in regards to greenwashing, greenwashing, it's all about related to risk of poor disclosure and reporting in terms of transparency. But if it's managed well, it can turn into opportunities. For one example, Unilever has been very consistent. Unilever, they provide clear and transparent communication in terms of the positive and negative impacts that they have. And because of that, they also have justification on why the negative had occurred and what they're going to do about it. So this is what readers want to know. It's not like, hiding everything and focusing on the positive ones, right? So because of this, Unilever has always been branded as a sustainable business in terms of practice and also in terms of implementation and reporting as well. So the reputation, like even for bank, if I hear Unilever, it's very hard for me, let's say if I work a global bank, it's very hard for me to say no to them in terms of financing, because I think it's going to be an easy assessment. Okay. Next, please. Yeah, so I think in a way I've kind of like covered this as well in terms of the effective communication. Okay, so can we go to the last section of the presentation, please? The one that I intentionally added out of scope just to share with all of you. Okay, so we have now entered the last section, so sustainable companies, choice of the current and future workforce. Okay, I wanted to talk about the current and future job market that I'm seeing right now, I'm experiencing right now from an angle of sustainability practitioner for the last 10 years. When I first joined the workforce, sustainability is not well known. Many companies didn't even have a sustainability team. Chief Sustainability Officer apatah lagi, right? Department pun tak ada, right? So tak ada. There's especially in Malaysia lah. But over the years, like I said, because of regulatory push and demands from public and consumers, we are seeing the job market for sustainability is booming, booming like never before. And many researchers are also projecting that this will continue in the future because sustainability, like I mentioned just now, will still be more intense in the future, right? Especially with niche skill set. But the problem now is there's not enough talent. Especially the right talent to supply the demand for sustainability workforce, especially in the niche skill set. Sustainability can be very broad in terms of sustainability management and strategy, like what I'm doing and reporting, but also in terms of, let's say, the subject matter expert on energy efficiency, subject matter expert on renewable energy is still niche in the market, especially renewable energy for financial institution. That's even more niche. It's very hard to get a talent. So to give you an example, when I was doing hiring for myself, I went to hire a couple of staff. It took me over 3 months just to wet through a lot of CVs, a lot of resumes, and I couldn't even find with at least 50% that meet the requirement that fit into the task that I'm looking for. So when I asked around my peers at other banks as well, they also face the same issue. So you see the supply issues here, right? So that's why sustainability professional with niche skill sets are in demand now. And we will continue to see over the medium and long term as well. I can guarantee you that. Yeah. Next. Yeah. So not only that, across the job market, sustainability professionals are indeed in demand, and within the list of the growing job openings, I'm not sure whether you have LinkedIn or not, but if you're looking for jobs, ESG professionals are always there. Some of my other colleagues from non-ESG departments are quite envious. They're quite jealous. They say that, it's a good time to be for ESG, but I told them that this will continue. This will continue. So I think the question is, why has sustainability become important, and why is it within this list, which I already answered in the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is just the repetition of the earlier slide. What I talked about in terms of why sustainability is important, that tallies back with the supply that we need for sustainability talent. You can see in terms of consumer sentiment, the revenue, cost savings, risk management, everything, right? So to manage all of this, right, we need the right talent, and that's why it's within top of the list in terms of job search in Malaysia and also globally as well. I can tell you that. Next, please. Yeah, okay. So this one is interesting. Maybe you can justify this for me. Another interesting research was concluded that the younger generations care about sustainability when not only making purchasing decision, but also in terms of career choices. At first, I thought this might not be true, especially in Malaysia. Maybe Malaysia is not yet. But based on my hiring process and when I engage with the younger talent, I can see that this is pretty much accurate indeed. And companies are concerned, baby boomers, Gen Y, are going to be taken over by millennials and Gen Z in terms of stats sooner or later, right? So somehow companies need to find ways to attract them, the best and younger talent, and being a sustainable company, and to make that happen. The younger talent, seems that they want more than just a good paycheck. Seems that they want to be working with good purpose, somewhere that they can have or leave a positive impact to the wider community and planet. And they're very passionate about this. I'm seeing a lot of interest from the younger talent. So I truly believe that all of you, also the majority of you, will also share the same views when you make your decision in the near future when you join the workforce. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah, so this is basically some sort of everything that I mentioned earlier. But not only the younger generation, when we look at the whole workforce at large, over the 90%, they expect the company that they're working in have sustainability agenda, ambition, strategy, because nowadays employees compare. We talk, we have social media, we access to communication is so easy. So they compare with their peers from other banks or other organizations, how impactful their work are doing, how sustainable the companies are, how proud they are in terms of making changes for the community, for the environment. So for employees working at a company with a clear sustainability focus and agenda and ambition is important for their reputation and feel of pride that they carry. Next, please. Okay, so and companies are aware of this, and they know this trend very well. So like I mentioned earlier during my discussion on reporting and disclosure, it is also aimed to meet the stakeholders' demand. In this particular area is the future talents demand. Companies believe if they report and establish sustainability report, a good sustainability report, they will be able to communicate and attract talent to work for them, but the very best talent. So I give you an example. If you are going, I give you an advice, an example. If you're about to work in a company or get a couple of offers from a company, I truly suggest for you to read their sustainability statements and sustainability report. You will feel the sense of whether you can connect or you can fit in well or not in that company, whether that company gives more than just a paycheck. You know what I mean? So this is my practice as well. This is also something that I look into when I do my network. So sustainability reporting is a very important tool. So that's why businesses are capitalizing on sustainability report to also attract talent. Yeah. So next, please. Yeah. So you might be wondering which area should I go into. So I can tell you is everything lah. A lot of things. But based on what we are seeing right now, based on research as well, sustainable finance is highly in demand in terms of fashion as well. Initially, I'm also quite surprised when I see openings from Zara, from other than I was like, should I apply? But that's so weird. In design, even tourism, in terms of auditing, in terms of admin as well, is also growing. In terms of social related roles like human rights and labor rights issues, also is something that's really worked on. But what we are seeing, in the short and medium term, the highest growth will be in the low carbon area, especially in green areas. This is where we talk about maybe green, like over there, green mobility and transportation, and also those that can help in terms of decarbonization. This is something that is really in demand, and we don't with one of the lowest supplies at the moment, not just in Malaysia but across Southeast Asia. I can tell you that. That's why a lot of companies still depend on consultants in relations to low carbon skill sets. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, the demand has outpaced in terms of the demand has outpaced in terms of supply. Where companies are actually competing with other talent. I can't. Sometimes I joke around with my peers across other banks saying that don't steal this person, I might steal your person, something like that. That's an inner joke where we know how serious this is, where to get the right talent is so difficult, especially at financial institution. But what I would like to highlight here is that for future employees and workforce, I suggest for you to take this as an opportunity. Encourage you to explore sustainability related jobs that may be relevant to you. If you consider this, you will be exposed to good opportunities for career growth, for career specialization, and also it is a noble cause. I believe that we can be part of something bigger, not just us. Even it is aligned for you, for Muslims out there, this is also aligned to our Islamic principles. So there's something that you can actually give a positive impact. You do work, and at the same time you do something noble as well. So if you are keen, so what do you need to do? So my advice is on the next and final slide. So my advice to you, there's five, which also I find it quite useful. So I think first is for you to, but at the end of the day, I feel that you need to be very proactive and consistent from now on. First, you need to assess in terms of your skills and interests, and also your background. Sustainability covers a lot of topics, whatever it is that you're studying or involved in. Find the connection that can link with sustainability. And from there, uh, you will need to understand in terms of the industry that you might be interested in, understand the business model, study in terms of the operations and the value chain, and to link where the sustainability tasks or functions will be relevant. And next, this is always you need to be agile and leverage on multiple transferable skill sets. Trust me, over the years, I observed that talents with good analytical skills, problem solving, communication, stakeholder management would excel in this industry of sustainability. Yes, of course, you can come from an environmental science background, you can come from even a sustainability background, but this kind of skills can actually make you stand out and be a good asset for the company. I can tell you that you started working your this skill set, which also help you in terms of building that connection with your peers and also the external parties that can actually help you to be better in what you do. Yeah. Because so next is continuous capability building through education and training. Sustainability is not just for us sustainability professionals, but everybody can learn it. I believe that there are also free courses out there from the United Nations and certifications too. There is no individual that is considered the perfect sustainability professional. There's none. Sustainability is so broad. It needs to be a collaborative effort, and you need different skill sets to work on strategy and reporting implementation for sustainability. So that brings me to the final one, which is the networking and associations. If you have the chance, try to network and try to, you know, be involved in maybe some forums or some education or some awareness, not just to keep updated on the trends, but also to see what are the areas that you feel that you can contribute in the best manner. Yeah. And all of these five areas are actually the ones that actually I personally that helped me and also many other sustainability professionals even before they enter the sustainability workspace. Because let's say before this they are accountant or they are maybe they are scientists that are not doing sustainability and they want to do sustainability, they can actually apply this approach as well. So I hope that this will also be helpful to you all as well in the future. Yeah. And with that, I think I've overrun my time, I think, or just in time. So that's all from me, and I'm more than happy to take a few questions if there's any.
Okay, thank you so much to Encik Faiz for the insightful presentation. That was truly informative for all of us. Now we will open the floor for questions. Please type your questions in the chat box and our speaker will address them.
So the first question is, how does RHB balance the pursuit of profitability with the long-term investment required for market low ESG awareness? Yeah, so I think, okay, this is good. This is a good question. Actually, the board also asks this question very well. I think in a way, not just for banks, but for the banks and also RHB, we understand that at the end of the day, we are still a business and we still need to give value to our shareholders in terms of profitability and based on our revenue. So the key item here is basically transition. We cannot transition to sustainability overnight. We cannot force the market to be sustainable overnight. We will still focus on the non-ESG products. At the same time, we will advocate more on the adoption of sustainability products to our customers. This has been going on very well, especially with the corporate and commercial clients, because we don't really face any issues from there because they also have the appetite to change. But in terms of those that with lower ESG awareness, it is applicable to state this is for our SME clients. Their focus are very short term in terms of profitability. For them to take on sustainability is an investment and resources constraint. So what we do is basically we partner up with a lot of industry association to do regular engagement. So if you notice, one of our KPI is basically on 2 million targeted individuals and businesses, right? One of the programs is basically for us to work with the SMEs in terms of how they should lower their emission, how they should start reporting, all those things. But I can tell you this is a long process. The uptake is still challenging, and the regulators are also aware, and the regulators have also come up with a lot of programs for the SMEs on this. So this is where we are also working with the regulators as well. Yeah. Next question, looking ahead, what emerging trends or technologies do you believe will suddenly reshape city practices and shaping back industry over the next decade? I think internally, I can tell you is the infrastructure for data management. I think for data management tools and analysis, this is something that is an issue right now because even data availability is also an issue. Yeah? So the next thing that I see that will be needed is the investment in this infrastructure to kind of like manage the end-to-end data collection and analysis. So this is where in terms of, not in terms of just storage, but also in terms of analyzing and quantifying the financial impact from climate change. And after this, apart from climate, maybe there's nature, maybe there's human rights. We need to quantify that. So this kind of technologies is needed. And for instance, like if there are incorporation of, let's say for climate and biodiversity, software and technology such as GIS is needed. To embed this across our clients and also across our portfolio is going to be a challenge. So this is something that is going to be the focus in the next decade that I can think of, especially in terms of data management. Next is the role do you see collaboration between financial and regulators playing accelerating the adoption of practice across banks, etc. Yeah, I think this is a lot. Like I mentioned earlier, the regulators always comes knocking at our door for us to play a bigger role. So basically, the regulators, they expect internally the banks to have a good internal establishments to manage the risks and opportunities. But at the same time, they also expect banks to provide advocacy for the customers to transition and also to provide the right solutions. When I say solutions, is in terms of our product offerings, in terms of our services, in terms of the tools that we can provide. So I give an example. So Bank Negara has come up with a set of guidelines for the SMEs, for instance, for data collection and reporting. So we work with the regulators on this as well. And also now we are also working with the customers in terms of tracking the information needed in terms of climate data, social data, and so on and so forth. So we see that for the banks and regulators, we are not going to work in silo. We will work based on the guidance from the Bank Negara. And if we want to do more, it is something that is along the lines of the expectations from the regulators. Yeah. And I can also talk about maybe in terms of from the reporting side, let's say Bursa. I personally engage quite a lot with Bursa in terms of gauging the expectation of future standards for reporting. So this is where we look at the feasibility of reporting. Are we ready for certain standards or certain adoption? So this is also ongoing. So yeah. How can banks drive innovation in sustainable finance to not only meet regulatory requirements but also create new opportunities? Yeah, so I think this is uh, something that we do quite well, and I can tell you based on the sustainable financial services performance that you see I presented earlier is growing. There is no regulatory requirements that state that okay, there's a certain percentage of your um, loan growth or loan book that must be sustainable finance. There's no such regulations. But the banks would want to see whether we have targets set for sustainable finance or not. eh? They want to know that. So we have that already. But in terms of creating opportunities, we have this mindset whenever we go to a client is sustainability first. So whenever a client comes to us and they want a loan, and initially they wanted like a general, a brown asset or non-traditional, non-ESG loan, for instance, right? uh, our relationship managers, the bank will assess whether we can fit that under sustainability or not. And then we can also talk to them. Actually, we can actually make this a sustainable finance, something like that. Are you keen? Something like that. So we always advocate on that. And we also do a lot of sharing sessions with them through UNGC, even our internal programs as well. We invite them over to talk about what are the cost savings, what are the, in terms of long-term set of premiums that they can save from sustainability. We even talk to them about trends, like in the future, there's not going to be more on the high-risk investment. We also have prohibited credits. We also have our assessment tool. Generally, what we are telling them, right, in the future, sustainable finance will not be called sustainable finance. It will be just financing. So getting them to be prepared for that early on is also our advocacy that we are doing quite um, actively with them. Yeah. And also I think just to wrap that question up, because just to think of another example, right? In terms of creating new business opportunities, right? When we talk to the customers, one of the customers, right, in the plantation sector, the loan requirement set was not sustainable finance. But then when we discuss in terms of sustainability and how they can improve in terms of the performance, they kind of like found out that there are other areas that they can venture into that can be applicable under sustainable finance, where they want to invest in maybe a new infrastructure that can actually generate new revenue streams for them. So it's a win-win for us and them, meaning in terms of we get them to get sustainable finance from us, and at the same time for them to have another innovative or revenue stream from another facility or another infrastructure. Yeah. If I may ask, uh, all of you are studying, what course you guys studying?
Operation management, business studies.
Business studies. Okay. Are there any more questions? And to be honest with you, I think it's a good thing because nowadays, the tertiary education, they tend to want to get more exposure in sustainability. I think what you guys are doing is very good, and to continue this, I feel that um, uh, you won't regret learning about sustainability. I can tell you that, because at one point in your career, you will be exposed to sustainability. So, if I can go back in time, I'm already old. So if I can go back in time to your age, I would learn a lot more on sustainability, the fundamentals, so that when I enter workforce, it will be a great asset. I can tell you that. And like I said, even for like sustainable finance, after this it will be just finance. So sustainability also, it won't be sustainability, it will be business as usual. Eh? So well, while you still can, you can learn a lot. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Encik Faiz. I think that is all the question for today. Thank you for your thoughtful questions, everyone. And thank you, Encik Faiz, for answering them.
Thank
Before
you.
we come, yeah, right. Before we conclude, we'd like to invite everyone to turn on their cameras for a quick group photo. Let's make this moment memorable. Okay, ready? 1, 2, cheese. Okay, once again. 1, 2, cheese. Sorry. Thank you, everyone. Before we end our session, let us thank once again to Encik Faiz for your time and the valuable insight you have shared with us today. We truly appreciate your expertise and effort in making this webinar a success. With
Okay.
that, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to say thank you for spending a couple of hours listening to me. All the best in everything that you do. And if there's anything, just I think my LinkedIn is there. You can connect with me, and we can take it on from there. If you guys need some advice, I'll be more than happy to help.
Thank you, Encik Faiz. With that, we'd like to formally conclude the session with you. We understand you may have other commitments, so please feel free to leave the meeting at your convenience. Thank you once again.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you. All the best. Assalamualaikum.
Alright, dear participants, before leaving, we might hope that you can scan the QR code for the webinar feedback. On behalf of the organizing committee, thank you for your time and participation. Feel free to leave this meeting and have a great day ahead. Assalamualaikum and goodbye. Para pelajar boleh scan QR code untuk feedback form.
Dan sesiapa yang masih belum register boleh scan sekali.
After the